Okay friends, it's time to get started on replacing our fuel pump. Why are we under the hood at the fuse box? I'll show you why. Go ahead and carefully open that up by lifting up on each side. Underneath that, you're going to find a legend that tells you exactly the fuse we're looking for. We want to find a 15 amp that says fuel pump. You can see it right here. So what we're going to do after that is we're going to find this area and then find the 15 amp fuse which is down inside that little groove. Go ahead and pull that out of there. I'll use some long nose pliers, grab right onto it and pull it out. Now you want to look inside the plastic area. Make sure it doesn't look like it's burnt or damaged in any way. Ours looks fine, so I'll set it aside. Now let's hop inside the passenger compartment and try starting the vehicle. Now what you saw is the vehicle did not want to start after I pulled that fuse. That's because we made sure that the fuel pump was not running at this point. The only thing that happened is the engine tried drawing any fuel out of the system. That's going to be helpful. Let's put the 15 amp fuse in, cover it back up, and get to work. Slide that right in there. Make sure it's completely down. It's very important. Cover the fuses. All right, let's get inside the trunk and we're going to start disconnecting our negative battery terminal. That's the black one right here. Go ahead and loosen this 10mm headed nut and then remove the terminal from the battery. Make sure that's making no contact. All right, so now that we have the battery disconnected, the next thing I want you to think about is the fact that we have to lower the fuel tank. That's from underneath the vehicle. With that said, you're gonna have to safely raise and support the rear of the vehicle up quite a bit, because once you take down the straps and everything else, we need to bring it down at an angle and slide it out so we can work on it. With that said, let's get this thing up in the air. To get the fuel tank down a little bit easier, we're gonna have to hang the exhaust. What do I mean by that? We're going to move along to some of our rubber hangers. We'll start at this one. Go ahead and grab onto it and slide it right on off of there. If you needed to, you can use some sort of lubricant to make it a little bit easier. We'll go ahead and follow that a little bit further back and we're going to find 3 more rubber hangers. There's one right next to the charcoal canister. And then along the back side of the muffler, you're going to find 2 more. Let's see if we can slide these off of here. Now we're just going to carefully let this hang down. You'll notice it won't come too far because you do have the rear axle holding it in place. Okay, so at this point, we're ready to start disconnecting some wiring. If you were to feel right up along this area, you're going to find a tab. Carefully grab onto that, lift it, and gently pull this away. Give it a close inspection, set it aside. Now we're going to continue trying to find this area. It's a nice red connector, and you can see the tab. Once again, lift it up, separate it, give it a close inspection. Now we're going to go ahead and follow that wiring up along the body. You're going to find 2 mounting clips. You want to make sure you disattach those and pull the wiring down. For this, you can use a pick or even a small screwdriver. Let's bring that wiring up and over this. Now we can start disconnecting the wiring up along this area. We've got some more of those little tabs. You can go ahead and grab onto it, give it a tug, quick inspection, and move along to the next. Now we can move along to our 2 evap lines. You're going to find you have the larger one that leads over to the charcoal canister. To remove this, you're going to find 2 rectangular tabs to squeeze. There's one along the back side and one directly on the opposite side. These are easiest to squeeze using some pliers. I'm going to grab onto both of those rectangles carefully, give them a little squeeze, and then I can grab the line and gently remove it from the charcoal canister. Now we can move along to our other evap line. This is pretty much the same process. You're going to be looking for the 2 rectangles. Give them a squeeze, pull it off. Once you've completed the evap lines, let's move along to our 2 fuel lines. The process for these will be the same thing as the evap lines, in exception of the fact that there could potentially still be fuel in the system. I'm going to look for my 2 locking tabs. I'll give them a little squeeze and pull this down. Sometimes, if you needed to, you can go ahead and flex this enough to be able to reach the areas. We'll give those a quick inspection. Do the same to the other. Now we can continue with an 8mm or a flathead screwdriver. We just want to loosen up this clamp enough that we can slide it out of the way and remove the hose from the filler neck. Slide that right up here. Once you have the clamp off of there, continue on with a pick. We want to carefully get in between this area and not damage the hose in any way. All I want to do is break it free from the metal. Once I work my way around, we can continue by trying to pull it off of here. Now we can start pulling this off of here. Sometimes you can go ahead and pull on the filler neck and pull it out. Other times you have to start lowering the tank to get it to pull away. There we are. Give it a close inspection. Move along. Now that we have everything disconnected, we can start preparing to lower the tank. We have our jack underneath this area to hold it for us. To start lowering the tank, we're going to have to remove the passenger side and the driver's side straps. They're each going to have a 13mm bolt on the front and the back of them. We'll go ahead and remove the pair. Go ahead and remove your strap and inspect it, and then do the exact same thing on the other side of the vehicle. Okay, so we have both of the straps out of here. At this point, it's going to be helpful to have a second person. What we need to do is slowly start bringing this down. As it comes down, we're going to have to start tipping it towards the passenger side and bringing it down at an angle. The areas that you want to pay attention to is your filler hose that comes behind the axle here. Also, the tank goes up and over the exhaust, which we have hanging. That's why we need to have it at an angle. Let's start lowering this down. All right, nice and easy. Once we get it down past here, we can get it right down on the ground. All right, that's good with the jack. Start bringing it over. A little fuel line here. All right, so we've got this down on the ground and we have a closer look. We're going to make our way right over to the electrical harness. Squeeze on the center tab. Go ahead and pull that off of there. Give it a close inspection. Make sure you don't see any funny colors. Set that aside. Now the next thing you want to do is follow each of your fuel lines. You're going to notice that they get pressed right down into the fuel tank. We're going to carefully pop those out of there without damaging the fuel tank in any way. For that, I'll just use a small screwdriver, carefully get underneath it, and gently pry it up and out. There we are. There's that one. Now ours is broken up along the top, so I'm just going to go ahead and get this out of the way. But generally yours will just be hanging here. Now I'll do the same to the other. Broken again. Set it aside. Now we can move along to the locking ring. For this, you're going to find that you have several ears that hold this down. To get this off of here, you want to use a brass punch and a rubber mallet. You never want to use anything steel along this area, just in case you cause a spark. Obviously, there's fuel vapor. I'm just going to try to grab onto any of the ears that I can and try to turn this counterclockwise. Once it breaks free, you can go ahead and carefully try to move this aside. Yours is more than likely going to have the lines on here. You'll just kind of slide it off as far as you can. Now we can grab onto this. We're going to start lifting it up and out. You want to make sure that you have a nice collection receptacle to collect any of the fuel that might still be inside of the fuel pump assembly. We'll start lifting this up and out of here. You're going to find that there's a whole bunch of wiring and such that you want to try to work out of there as well. We're looking at this rod right here. This is for the fuel level. You want to make sure you pull that out very carefully. Now inside this area, there's going to be a lot of fuel, so we'll make sure that we recycle that properly. There it is, friends. While we have the fuel pump assembly draining in our bucket, let's continue on at the fuel tank. We're going to remove our rubber seal. We're going to be disposing of this, but it's a good idea to go ahead and take a look at it. Looking at this one, I can see that it's extremely dry rotted and cracked. It's a good thing that our new assembly comes with a brand new gasket as well. I'll set that aside for recycling. Now I'm going to move along to this area here. All inside this groove is where that seal needs to sit, so it needs to be clean and free of any debris. It's a plastic tank, so you shouldn't see any rot in this area, but you might find some rust flakes that shouldn't be there. Perfect. Okay friends, so we're at the point where we're going to get ready to install our brand new fuel pump assembly. Let's take that brand new seal and put it directly in the groove. You'll see it fits perfectly. Now it's going to be time to start preparing the fuel pump assembly. As I turn this, you want to pay attention to this area, right along here and up along this. The reason why I'm bringing attention to that is for this protective screen. This screen is essentially supposed to keep out any rust flakes that might potentially be inside your fuel tank. We'll slide it up through these grooves. And now we're going to line everything up and press it in. You want to listen for a couple clicks, and then try to give it a tug and try to pull it away from the sending unit. It shouldn't want to fall off. Obviously, you don't want it falling directly into the fuel tank. Now we can take the fuel pump assembly here, and we're going to start putting it in position. But before we lower it down, let's carefully grab onto the lines up top. I want to pivot these a little bit. Now we can take the level, and we'll slide it down in position inside the fuel tank. Go ahead and slide this down. While we're sliding this down, we want to make sure we have our hoses and wires fitting down into the fuel tank. Now we're going to pay attention to the electrical connector. That should be facing towards the front of the vehicle. So we want to make sure we have this portion pretty much pressed right up against this ear. Once you have it in that position, continue on with your locking ring. Looking at the locking ring, you can see that I have the edge that comes up right along the center. You need to have that edge facing up. I'll just take this and I'm going to put it right over my fuel lines. We'll press this down into its position once again, making sure that we're almost lined up with this tab right here. Now we're going to take our locking ring and start it over all of the mounting ears. As I'm doing this, I'm going to be pressing it down and turning it clockwise. What I want to do is try to slide this locking ring underneath each of these ears that are on the fuel tank. To put this together, I'll continue with my rubber mallet and my brass punch. I like to work my way around. Now looking at this, I can see that it's completely locked in all the way around. It's common for it to seem like it's locked in on one ear, but as you make your way around, you notice that it isn't over here. If that's the case, just give it a thorough inspection and drive it in. Perfect. Now we can take each of these lines and we're going to put them in place along the fuel tank. If there's anything in the fuel tank where they're supposed to go, just go ahead and wipe it right out of there. Once we have it cleaned out, let's go ahead and start putting these lines in place. You just want to press them down underneath the dimples along the fuel tank. They should slide right in there. There's one. We'll do the same to the other. Now we can go ahead and plug this in. Listen for a click, give it a nice tug to make sure it's secure. At this point, you want to double check everything. This needs to be plugged in. Obviously, you want to have the snap ring completely locked. And of course, the fuel lines are in along the fuel tank as they should be. Assuming everything looks good, let's get this back in the vehicle. Now we can start putting the fuel tank up. We're going to start by using the filler neck first. We'll put it up and over the axle. Now I'm going to continue on with the driver's side. We need to try swinging this up and over the exhaust. After you get it above the exhaust, we're going to continue putting it in place. Now it's a good idea to keep the fuel tank a little bit loose. We're going to continue by putting the filler hose onto the filler neck. Generally, you can move this around a little bit and you should be able to get it lined up. Make sure you have your clamp in the proper position so you can install it afterward. Just slide that fuel tank a little bit. Once you have it on there, go ahead and put on your mounting clamp. You want to make sure this is nice and tight so you don't have any fuel leaks. Let's tighten our clamp. Make sure it's secure. Now we can put on our evap line. Press that all the way up on there. Listen for a click, give it a tug to make sure it's completely secure. We'll continue on to this one. Listen for a click. We'll give that a tug. Now we can continue on to our fuel lines. Take a look at the fuel filter. Looking at it, you can see that one of the areas is much larger than the other. And if you were to look at the fuel lines, you'll find the same. Match them up, plug them in. This is my smaller one. Larger one. Now we can start reconnecting our wiring. Listen for a click, give it a tug, do the larger one. Now I'll just take the rest of this wiring. We want to put it up and through all of its mounting points. It needs to be secured so it's not hanging down and it can't get caught or damaged on anything. Let's get this one connected in as well, red to red. Listen for a click, give that a tug. I'm going to tuck this up here. We'll press this in. Got a nice click there. Perfectly secured. Now we're going to continue putting our fuel straps up. The process will be the same for the pair, so we'll show you on the passenger side and you can just do the same on the other. Once you have it lined up, continue on by putting your mounting bolts in. Okay, we've got the straps in there. Let's get our jack out of here. Let's move along to resecuring our exhaust. We have all of our rubber hangers. Now, if you were to look where the rubber hangers go, you can see I applied a thin amount of grease to each of the ears. That's just to help things slide into place a little bit easier. Line it up, slide it on. Do the same on the other side over here. All right, let's make our way back in the trunk and reconnect that negative battery terminal. We'll just take it, we'll make perfect contact here, press it down as far as possible. Now you want to use your 10mm to tighten up that mounting nut. Give it a wiggle to make sure it's completely secured. Close your trunk. Okay friends, we got the car back together. What's left to do now? Now of course you're going to want to make sure that you start up the vehicle. Let it run for a little while. Take a peek underneath, make sure you don't have a fuel leak. After that, take it for a road test. Thanks for watching.